That's it. What do you think, Dr. Rob?
It's wonderful, Dr. Ali. It looks just like snakeskin. I cannot believe it's just paint.
It's the magic of our special effects. They know how to reproduce materials, colours, natural surfaces, from ice to silk. Now we will explain how.
Every special effect can be achieved using the most common wood as well as substrates such as MDF or isolated papers. The substrate must be carefully prepared by sanding with 150 grit paper. Sanding residues must be removed with compressed air. And then proceed by applying the coating materials. After mixing them with hardeners, catalysts or thinners, we recommend that you shake the sealers and top coats thoroughly. Drying should be done at room temperature.
Let's start with snakeskin effect and crackle. To get a snakeskin effect, you need a nitro sealer in the chosen colour, a nitro thinner, a solvent-based patina in the chosen colour, acrylic top coat, hardener for acrylics, and thinner for polyurethane. For a crackle effect, a nitro sealer in the chosen colour, a nitro thinner, a solvent-based patina in the chosen colour, and a nitro top coat.
Let's move on to the application. To achieve the Sydney effect, snakeskin, you must mix the nitro sealer with a thinner at a 100:40 ratio. Apply the sealer, thus prepared in quantities of about 150 grams per square metre, and let it dry for 4 hours. Then apply the patina in 2 coats of paint with a maximum thickness of about 100 grams per square metre total. Leave it to dry for 8 hours and then apply the silk top coat mixed with the hardener and thinner at 100:30 ratio. The application should be uniform and the thickness should be about 100 grams per metre squared. Complete drying occurs after 24 hours. And this is the final effect.
For Istanbul crackle effect, mix the sealer with the thinner at a 100:40 ratio. Proceed with the application of the sealer in the amount of approximately 150 grams per metre squared. After 4 hours, apply a solvent-based patina in 2 steps at a maximum thickness of about 100 grams per square metre total. Then leave to dry for 8 hours. During this time, the patina will develop cracks that characterise the Istanbul effect. Next, you would apply the nitro top coat, diluted with thinner at a 100:30 ratio. The application should be uniform and with a thickness of about 100 grams per metre squared. In this case, the complete drying takes place in 8 hours.
Look at how the effect is developing.
Let's move on to the Barcelona effect, which recreates a mosaic look, and the Helsinki effect, cracked ice. To get both effects, we need a waterborne sealer in the chosen colour, a solvent-based patina in the chosen colour, a glossy acrylic top coat, hardener, and thinner. The application is rather different. To realise the Barcelona mosaic effect, the water-based sealer should be applied in quantities of about 150 grams per metre squared. Wait for 4 hours and then apply the patina with solvent. The patina should be applied in maximum 2 coats of paint, with a thickness of about 100 grams per square metre total. Leave it to dry for 8 hours. At this stage, the patina will develop a mosaic effect, breaking on a regular basis in small cracks. Once the drying is complete, apply the acrylic top coat mixed with hardener and thinner at a 100:80:40 ratio. The application should be uniform and the thickness of about 100 grams per metre squared. Complete drying takes place in 8 hours.
To obtain the Helsinki cracked ice effect, the waterborne sealer should be applied in quantities of about 150 grams per metre squared. Let it dry for 35 minutes before applying a maximum of 2 hands of patina, with a thickness of about 100 grams per metre squared total. Respect for overcoating times between the waterborne sealer and the patina is critical to obtain good results. It is necessary that the application of the patina occurs when the sealer is not completely reticulated, but only when in the dust-off. Leave it to dry for 8 hours. During this time, the patina will develop deep and wide cracks with large particles. Once perfectly dried, it can be overcoated with acrylic top coat, mixed with hardener and thinner at a 100 to 80 to 40 ratio. The application should be uniform and the thickness of about 100 grams per metre squared. Complete drying takes place after 8 hours.
The Shanghai and Las Vegas effects respectively recreate the look of silk and a luminescent top coat. To achieve the Shanghai effect, we need a white polyurethane sealer, a polyurethane base coat in the chosen colour, a hardener for polyurethane sealer, a thinner, a silk effect acrylic top coat, and a hardener for acrylic top coats. While for the Las Vegas effect, you will need a paint of the chosen colour, an acrylic luminescent base coat, a hardener, a thinner, and an acrylic gloss series top coat.
To achieve the Shanghai effect, you will need to mix the white sealer with hardener and thinner at a 100 to 40 to 30 ratio. Uniformly apply 2 coats of paint with a thickness of 130 grams per metre squared, with a minimum of 2 and maximum of 4 hours interval. Let dry for about 12 hours and then sand with 380 grit paper. Then apply the solvent-based sealer in the chosen colour, mixed with hardener and thinner at a 100 to 50 to 30 ratio. The application should be uniform and the thickness of approximately 130 grams per metre squared. Leave it to dry for 12 hours and then sand with 320 grit paper. Finally, overcoat with the silk effect top coat, prepared by mixing the top coat with hardener and thinner at a 100 to 30 to 30 ratio. For a perfect result, you must strictly respect a top coat thickness of 100 grams per metre squared. Perfect drying is achieved after 24 hours.
For the Las Vegas effect, dilute the chosen paint with thinner at a 100 to 600 ratio. Apply evenly on the substrate chosen at a thickness of about 30 grams per metre squared. Let it dry for 1 hour and apply the luminescent acrylic sealer mixed with hardener and thinner at a 100 to 10 to 30 ratio. The application can be uniform over the entire surface of the object or restricted to small areas depending on the results you want. Let it dry for 2 hours and apply the acrylic base coat mixed with hardener and thinner at a 100 to 10 to 30 ratio. Wait for 2 hours and still sand the entire surface with 320 grit paper. Then evenly apply the acrylic top coat mixed with hardener and thinner at a 100 to 10 to 30 ratio in a single coat of paint of about 100 grams per metre squared thickness. The complete drying is done in 8 hours. The Manhattan effect has 2 variants, full of light and colour. The first one needs an acrylic sealer in the chosen colour, an acrylic metallic top coat in the chosen grain size, fine, medium or coarse, then hardener and thinner. For the effect, you will need a white polyurethane sealer, a hardener for polyurethane sealer, metallic colour acrylic top coat in the chosen colour, copper, light or grey aluminium, warm gold, hardener for acrylic top coat, and thinner.
Let's start with the Manhattan light effect. Mix the acrylic sealer in the chosen colour with hardener and thinner at a 100:10:30 ratio. Then evenly apply 2 coats of paint 130 grams per metre squared thick, with an interval of at least 2 hours and up to 4. Let it dry for about 12 hours, then sand with 320 grit paper. Mix the top coat with hardener and thinner at a 100:10:30 ratio. Apply evenly, if possible, in a 130 grams per metre squared thickness coat. Complete drying is reached in 12 hours. For the coloured variant of the Manhattan effect, mix the white sealer with the hardener and thinner at a 100:40:30 ratio. Apply 2 coats of paint evenly with a thickness of 130 grams per metre squared with a minimum of 2 and maximum of 4 hours interval. Let it dry for about 12 hours, then sand with 320 grit paper. Mix the metallised acrylic top coat with hardener and thinner at a 100:10:30 ratio. Apply the chosen top coat evenly with a thickness of about 130 grams per metre squared. In the event that you are looking for a more dusty effect, we recommend applying a second layer of top coat after 3 to 5 minutes. Complete drying is done in 12 hours.
The Berlin, Dubai and Mumbai effects share many preparatory ingredients. For all 3, you will need a white polyurethane sealer, 2 hardeners and a thinner. What changes is the top coat. For the Berlin effect, you will need an aluminium acrylic top coat. For the Dubai gold effect, you will need a golden acrylic top coat. And finally, for Mumbai silver effect, you will need a silver acrylic top coat.
For all 3 effects, you should mix the white sealer with the hardener for polyurethane sealer and the thinner at about a 100:40:30 ratio. Apply 2 coats of paint evenly with a thickness of 130 grams per metre squared with a minimum of 2 and maximum of 4 hours interval. Let dry for about 12 hours, then sand with 320 grit paper. Wait for 12 hours before recoating, which, depending on the effect, aluminium, acrylic top coat, golden acrylic top coat or silver acrylic top coat. Always mix with hardener and thinner for acrylic top coat at a 100:10:40 ratio. The layer should be uniform and the thickness of about 100 grams per metre squared. Complete drying takes place after 8 hours.
Let's proceed with the Florence effect, marble. To achieve it, you will need a white polyurethane sealer, a hardener for polyurethane sealer, a thinner, the paint in the chosen colour, a thinner, an acrylic top coat, a hardener for acrylic top coat, and a rag or a swab.
Before the application, mix the white sealer with a polyurethane hardener and thinner at a 100:50:30 ratio. Evenly apply 2 coats of paint in a 130 grams per metre squared thickness with a minimum of 2 and maximum of 4 hours interval. Let dry for about 12 hours, then sand with 600 grit paper. Mix the paint with the thinner at a 10:300 ratio. Apply 10 to 20 grams per metre squared and thereupon proceed to sponge the surface with a swab or absorbing paper soaked in thinner. This operation must be carried out unevenly, avoiding ragging, in order to get an inhomogeneous and non-repeating effect. Stop sponging as soon as the chosen effect is achieved. Wait for 2 hours before recoating with glossy top coat mixed with hardener for acrylic top coat and thinner at a 100:80:40 ratio. The application should be uniform and the thickness of about 100 grams per metre squared. Complete drying takes place after 8 hours.
For the London effect yarn, you will need white polyurethane sealer, hardener for polyurethane sealer, stringy sealer in the chosen colour, hardener for stringy sealer, gloss series, acrylic top coat, a hardener for gloss acrylic top coats and a thinner.
For the application, mix the white sealer with a suitable hardener and a thinner at a 100:40:30 ratio. Evenly apply 2 coats of paint with a thickness of 130 grams per metre squared, with a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 4 hours interval. Let it dry for about 12 hours, then sand with 320 grit paper. Mix the stringy sealer with a hardener at a 100:100 ratio. Apply by adjusting the maximum pressure at 1 bar. Since it is a yarn effect, we suggest to apply it horizontally and unevenly. Vertical applications are possible, but the impact drops will be more evident than the cobwebs. Wait for 2 hours before recoating with acrylic top coat mixed with special hardener and thinner at a 100:10:40 ratio. The application should be even and the thickness of about 100 grams per metre squared. Complete drying takes place after 8 hours.
Let's proceed with the Oslo effect, frost, which is obtained with white polyurethane sealer, hardener for polyurethane sealer, thinner, frost effect waterborne patina, golden, acrylic top coat and hardener for acrylic top coats.
For the Oslo effect, mix a white sealer with hardener for polyurethane sealers and a thinner at a 100:40:30 ratio. Evenly apply 2 coats of paint with a thickness of 130 grams per metre squared with a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 4 hours interval. Let dry for about 12 hours, then sand with 320 grit paper. Carefully clean the surface of sanding dust with a damp cloth and proceed with the application of the waterborne frost effect patina. Apply about 50 grams per metre squared flat. Then place the coated support on a flat surface, taking care to protect it from too strong air currents or direct sources of heat. A lower thickness reduces the texture, and forced drying with strong ventilation or direct sources of heat can change the crystallization. Wait for 12 hours before recoating with golden acrylic top coat mixed with hardener and thinner for top coats at a 100:10:40 ratio. The application should be even and the thickness of about 100 grams per metre squared. Complete drying takes place after 8 hours.
The Detroit effect can be obtained with black polyurethane sealer, a hardener for polyurethane sealers, a thinner, a glossy acrylic base coat, a hardener for acrylic base coats, chrome effect, and glossy top coats.
Mix the black sealer with specific hardener and thinner at a 100:40:30 ratio. Evenly apply 2 coats of paint with a thickness of 150 grams per metre squared within a minimum of 2 and maximum of 4 hours interval. Let dry for about 12 hours, then sand with 320 grit paper. Mix the glossy acrylic sealer with the hardener for acrylic sealers and the thinner at a 100:80:30 ratio and proceed with the application. The application should be even and the thickness of about 150 grams per metre squared. Wait for 12 hours for drying and then, without sanding nor scratching the surface, apply the chrome effect. The recommended thickness is 30 grams per square metre in just one coat of paint. After 6 hours, you can overcoat with the specific glossy chrome effect top coat. Complete drying takes place after 8 hours. Sanding or any scratches, accidental or intentional, of the glossy acrylic sealer before applying the chrome effect coating will produce a different effect from the chrome mirrored one.
With the Detroit effect, we are done. It was the last one.
Now it's up to you to experience our special effects. And if you have any doubts, visit our Milesi Facebook page or visit www.milesi.com.
See you soon.